Welcome, everybody.
Oh, thank you.
Susan is going to get us started in this venture of dealing with conflict. And I want to say that that person that was supposed to do the helpers meeting on Monday.
Yes.
And here's Roberto. Hi, Roberto.
Hi, Roberto.
The person doing the help the helpers can't do it, had an emergency, and so I'll be stepping in and having a discussion about conflict on Monday morning. So if you can make the time, it'd be great to have your input in that, to do that with me. If not, you can hear the recording of it. So should we just take a couple of breaths and at the end last time, we'll pick up right here. And so we're going to try to pick up where we left off. And I thought we were really working together.
Yeah.
To try to understand our relationship with conflict, and it seems like such an essential human issue. Conflict within us and conflict between us. Okay, Susan,
okay.
To you.
Hey, everybody. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about Lynn's paper, just so we're clear, you know, he wrote it. But I love it because it's so human and personal. And it is called Fitting in, Pouring Out, and Relating. Is there anybody who hasn't read it? Okay, so I can go back to it and it's fresh. Something hits me new. So I am going to talk about just a few key aspects of it that I think, have so much to do with conflict. And like the conflict we are all involved in our group, and the conflicts in the world, because I think it is the same root, and anyhow, let me start. Okay. Well, you all know that it is about relating. Relating over conflict, and how difficult that is. And I mean, this paper really makes a point that it is very difficult, and we should not be at all discouraged if we fail again and again and again, and partially fail. Because we're stretching ourselves. And he says we haven't yet learned how to hold the tremendous upset that it brings. And so I think it's something evolutionary to do with evolution. I mean, I think it's not just a couple of techniques, but something much more profound than that, that is part of human development, of the human species development. That's my feeling. and that we're just, we're little bits along the way. So we should not be discouraged. Okay. I tried to make some notes for myself, but just bear with me, please. Here it comes. Okay. So the pouring out, everybody understands that the pouring out is relatively easy to do, because it's I think it's so natural that when one gets upset, it wants to just come out. And it is a pouring out of feelings, a body pouring out too, crying, could be very, very natural. And the feeling of it is that it's me. It's so authentic. It's what I feel. And it feels really good, because for some of us, it can be a release of stuff that was pent up that we couldn't say. And it can feel really good to let it come out. I had that experience. I mean, I had lots of experiences of that, but one I remember where it was many years ago with somebody I was coming to make as a friend, I thought, and there was something, I can't remember quite what was that was bothering me a lot. And I felt I had to tell her, in our developing friendship, so that we would be authentic. And I poured out, and I remember feeling, oh, I'm getting to it. This is it. And she was not, I mean, I was really shocked that she wasn't with me at all. She used the word blindsided. She could not relate to it. And it stopped our friendship. And that was pretty drastic. It was very upsetting to me, but I'll never forget that. How my experience of pouring out, which was, I finally come to what's true for me, I thought. That didn't match her. She felt bombarded, attacked, overwhelmed. So that, Jenlyn says, happens. And it happens in relating. It's often part of the process. And something that he said we need training or practice, help to metabolize and to tame. I'm going to read you. Let's see. Oh, this is not what I meant to read. Maybe this is. Yes, I think it is. It requires training and practice to know how to back up a little inside, like when you're being poured out upon, to make internal room for one's own reaction to feeling being attacked, and to give people room to cry, shout, or dump what feels like poison. We come to know that from inside, though, from the poorer outer's point of view, it is life forward. It's a real sharing, so that we can be glad they do it. I have an example of that, of someone being glad that she could be poured out on. That it's very moving to me. This is a very dear friend of mine who was a single, is a single mother, raised her children as a single mother with very little money. And she made a lot of so-called mistakes and was very anxious all the time. And it had an effect on the kids. And when they were teenagers, they were very angry at her. And they told her how they felt when they were little children. And she allowed it. She really took it in. And you didn't try to stop them. I think it was very painful because they were pouring out, they were very full of feeling and righteous. But she said to me that it was more important that her kids felt they could be real with her and that they didn't have to hold back a part of themselves. And she wanted to be close to them and have an intimate relationship. So she tolerated what felt very painful. Just have never forgotten that. It's kind of a model for me sometimes with my kids, because I have the same. They need to tell me things sometimes that are hard to hear. Okay, so enough for the pouring out part. I did have some things to say about fitting in, the other part, which I think one can do in conflict when it can be scary, and you can want to, go into your shell like a snail, find some protection, and kind of go back into older modes of being, or for a while. So, Jen Lynn I see now pouring out and fitting in as they are parts of relating, but they need more. And what they need is the intention of the person to be wanting to communicate, not wanting to have power over the other, convince them, that they're right, but they would rather the other person understand how they're feeling, and they really understand what it is the other person is feeling. And that's not present in pouring out or really in fitting in. So just going to read you a little bit. Do we have time for that, Lynn?
I think we don't, Susan. It's 20 after.
Okay.
So
Do-
we'll have to, yeah.
Can I read a few sentences?
Mhm.
So I should end. Is that what you're saying? Stop.
No, but you could read a few sentences.
Well, he says about being, there are two sides. There's not one side that's real. There are two, and that we are all at times on each side, but most people never see there are two sides of one interaction, and that we have to be on each side at the same time because it's one interaction, or we strive to be, that's the direction that we're trying to stretch ourselves in. So if I had time, I think it would be wonderful to hear from all of you how you see this and where you've struggled and where you've had trouble or fallen on your face or where you haven't, but we don't have time, right? Okay, I'm finished, Lynn.
I'm just I'm just the timekeeper. I'm not in charge here.
Okay, you said we don't have more time.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my watch.
You're in
But,
charge of
but
it.
I'm just telling, I'm just the timekeeper, but why don't you see what's a good way to uh finish
I am finished.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
I mean, I hope this can be a help to us as we work with our conflict that belongs to all of us. It's not just Jim's and not just BJ's, because
Mm.
I think we identify with each of you in different ways. I certainly do. So you are, doing something for us, and we're all involved.
Mhm. That last point that you made was gave me a lot about we are one interaction. There are two people,
Mm,
but one interaction, and that the issues are issues that we've been on both sides of
yep.
in the T group community that I was part of. We would we would there would be like 100 people, and we would take have different sides of something, and then we would reverse roles and have those people on
Mm,
that side of the room and those people on that side of the room, and that was amazing. But those of you who've been in more than one significant relationship, you might take one side of an issue, be on the side, for example, of the pursuer in one relationship, and then the next relationship you're on the side of the distancer, because that configuration can really change depending on who and what is going on.
mhm.
So let's just see what's there for anybody.
I did enjoy it very much. And then it's interesting. I mean, it gave me a lot of clarity as far as I think what I've been learning later, and I'm sorry, what I have been learning lately for a couple of years now about myself and deciding what to say in group when I wanted to express something related to feelings, and that gauging inside, how much I want to risk and be vulnerable, because I think it ultimately, I feel for me at least, to come to that place to reach more mutual interaction, I think. Um, but also knowing that I have no expectations, that I send this for myself, and how the other person is going to react is not my problem, my responsibility, or the person may not get anything of what I'm saying, but I cannot expect anything. Just see what
Yeah.
happens and hear their reaction, from the other person, and go from there. That's all.
Am I right to say, Roberto, that you're learning that you can say what you need to say without needing the other person to respond in any particular way? And that feels like a growth step for you.
Or I mean, I feel like I I mean, I want to be understood, but I also want to have a connection with somebody. Um, but I think more and more is okay. I want to say what I need to say, but I can't really expect
Mhm.
a response, or just put it out there, and whatever
Mhm.
happens, happens.
You can want one, but not require it.
It's interesting because I think from everybody is carrying forward what they were given, you know. And so when you're used to fitting in, then the pouring out feels like, that's the next step. And to not need a response from the other person, if you're used to pouring out, then in this paper, Jean says that you could say as much as the other person can hear, and then ask them to say it back, because then your priority is making a connection. It depends really on where we're coming from.
Right. I mean, I agree with that, Lynn, but like I've been in groups where, I think here, we encourage the reflecting back, but in groups sometimes you can say something, but if there's no response from the other person, it's kind of respected, and the silence seems to be the container of one's expression. But it doesn't mean that they hurt me. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you can have a lot of feelings about it.
So I find that hard. It makes me think of Marvin too, who has said how to say something, that asks kind of for response. And when there is none, it's hard. But I often need to sit before I have a response, I know. And I can feel the other it feels like I wish I could have a response, but sometimes I need more time. Because I think it's hard for the other person. It's hard for me when after I spoke, just now, I just wasn't sure how it landed. If it landed, you just don't know. And I can feel wishing I knew, but you can't, you don't want to stop the genuineness of the other side. You want to really respect that, because an answer sometimes isn't, I don't know, it's not what I want. I want to be able to see to let what's happening happen. I think it's very hard on Zoom. If we were all together in a living room and could really see each other, you can feel a response often.
Yeah, also you can read much more easier, like the bodily responses.
Absolutely.
Responses are not always in words, but a lot of responses are,
Yep.
all the body postures and facial expressions and a lot. Yeah.
It seemed, Susan, like you were saying, you wish that people would have responded to what you said, but you don't want to ask them to, because then it might not be genuine. Or
Yeah, right. Or they're trying, they're sort of, forcing one.
But then you could ask into that, like, are you giving a genuine answer?
You're just doing this because to be nice.
Mm.
Personally, I thought it was a good review of the article. And now if we can apply some of those concepts to what's going on in the group, it would be ideal.
One thing, Susan, I was aware of how much effort you were taking to try to say what you wanted in a way that it could be received. So you were thinking about us. How would we be able to take in the message?
And,
Mm.
oh, thanks. I was. But somehow this article has helped me over the years more than I think any other article I've read. It's encouraged me. And I sort of want to give that also. It's comforted me, when I think, oh, I'm not making much progress. Really does comfort me a lot.
Susan, I remember when you talked about it at Help for Helpers. And I'm not sure if Lynn had already assigned it to us at that point or not. I think maybe she had. But it's a powerful piece. And am I correct that it's not published?
Yeah.
That's kind of intriguing to me as well, that even the way that it has a kind of a vulnerability even in the writing of it. And of course, I don't know, maybe he tried to have it published, but at any rate, it's an apt, it's an apt thing to get us started here. And I really appreciate what all of you have said about it. So golly, it's just such a strange thing. It's kind of what I'd like to start by talking about the holding of the group. And so far, what I've been able to distinguish is that it's a holding the way we hold somebody in focusing.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, that's not that there's something, if it were true that Jim and I had a really, I would need something more. Lynn, you asked what might be deeper. And, when I went back and watched that episode of me, I don't think I could have been more vulnerable. I don't think I could have been more available. You saw a part of me that very few people ever see. And it's astonishing to me that knowing that part lives in me, I should still be somehow that you want more. And yet, if it's this still holding, focusing place, there's not room for any of those other very skillful conflict resolution methodologies that I presented in that email today. Not any. I think Marvin might be the only person who has said directly, the two of you need to sit down with somebody. There's so many ways. I just returned from a city board meeting. We have ombudsman. We have a protocol that helps us to get along with each other. And we have a place to go to issue a complaint. We have a way to talk where we aren't within the constricture of what a focusing way would be. And it seems to me to be it's kind of like watching an episode of The Twilight Zone. And I keep trying to remember. My assumption is that underneath your anger or disappointment, that Jim, you feel some grief that you and I are no longer paired, as you said. And I feel that too. I feel a deep regret and I feel a real sadness. I understand if that's how you feel. I get that. I feel that as well. And if I were 100, that would probably be possible because I'm moving faster and faster. But you guys you saw, and you've been asked to see again. And yet, I really have a sense that for most of you, to resolve our differences means that I should go and be paired with Jim. And that just, what? It makes me want to throw up. I will never require that part of me to be paired with Jim. Never. On the other hand, there are lots of other parts of me. And I've been taking care of that part of me all these years since 2021. And I have been through meeting after meeting after meeting with you, Jim. And yes, I've been friendly. Yes, I've been collegial, because there's that part of me that is very available and very happy to do that. So it's like, I wonder what a part of me is not, a part of me finds it not helpful to be paired with Jim.
Go ahead.
And I just wonder, Jim, what part of you is it that is so determined to be paired with me, that needs equal protection and needs equal care? Because you know what? Our being paired would not resolve that for you. And when I've said, Jim, it's not about you, I have been with a lot of people in a lot of exigency, in a lot of painful places. And I could be there with you. But I'm going to honor this part of me. And it's not about you in particular. But y'all know what? If it were about Jim in particular, there's no place for me to even say it. Because it's a circle, right? What is it? What is it? What is it? And so when I focused with Annette, I said, there's a tone of voice that shakes me to the core. I said something about Jim's father, which you had mentioned in an open meeting. And immediately that was a violation. And Jim, I know you wrote emails, and I've seen it, an email where you said, isn't that a violation of my privacy? So what could I say, guys, really? What could I say? And that night, I believe I am so proud of that part of me who was able to speak in a non-abrasive, non-hostile, non-blaming way. And Jim, I'm aghast at the ways that you speak to me and about me that are almost veiled warnings. So will you be willing to be paired with me now, or am I still too dangerous? Jim, I'm aghast that you can't hear or imagine. I know why BJ decided to make an email group. It was not for us. Oh no, it was for her. It was to serve her purposes. Jim, you say things. You say things. And I'm astonished. I wonder, what have I ever said to you, Jim? What have I ever said in front of other people? I have steadfastly refused to ever speak to anybody about you when I was paired with them, except one person on the team. And you talk about me to a bunch of people, Jim, when you are paired with them, because they tell me. And it's so ironic to me, you don't seem to realize they tell me. And I say, I don't want to look. In my life, there are codes of confidentiality that are born out of care, and I feel differently than you do about that. I do not, for me, and Nancy, it's just a difference. I don't condemn Jim. I'm not. I would just like to hear any of y'all. Please tell me something I have ever said or done to Jim that you know about that warrants requiring that part of me which you saw to be by myself with him. I have not. That's really about all I can say. I didn't say 40 words and I didn't pause, which I want to say I take issue with that. I take issue that we are being required implicitly. The only one of us who really gets an honest by God statement in is Jim. And he does it pretty regularly. Really.
Let's take that breath there, because there's so much that you said that we don't want to just be a pouring out, but we want to really take in what that means to you.
Do I deserve to be required to be by myself with Jim? And if you think that I'm not being inclusive,
BJ, I'm even reversing your name. I need a pause here. Okay? Sorry.
Yeah.
would it be okay at this moment for me to sort of reflect what I hear you saying, BJ?
sure. Thank you.
Is it okay?
Yes, thank you.
I watched the focusing with Annette a couple of times, and I think in really looking at it, what I got from that was what you're talking about, that I hadn't gotten at the time when you said you saw this and you didn't really understand me. Since there wasn't a lot of reflection, I didn't get that this little one in you felt very endangered and is relying on you to keep her safe, and that you were feeling very proud that you could keep her safe by in the way that you kept your father safe by taking away your sister and not subjecting him to her when he was dying. And I hadn't gotten that, but this feeling that there's a tone of voice, that a way of thinking or being feels not only uncomfortable but but undoing in a certain kind of way, and that the group would require you to be alone with Jim. Feels like that makes you want to throw up. You feel like, how could we, having seen this little one that feels endangered, how could we require that of you? How could we not support you in keeping that little one safe and bringing other parts of yourself, not that part? As if we're the family that's requiring you to marry the man that that is threatening to you, as if we're requiring you to eat pizza when you're allergic to pizza. Does what I'm saying feel right?
Um, I don't think that any of you consciously would put me in the room with Jim
No.
and
We're
close
not
the door.
talking about conscious.
So when you, I regret that I said require me. I didn't mean that you would require me.
But it feels that way, BJ, right? It feels that you're being required, I think, and that's how you're feeling. I'm not saying that this is what we wanted or I want, but you're feeling that, the group somehow is putting pressure for you to be with you.
The silence. The silence says, you and Jim just keep at this. Go ahead. We're going to let y'all just keep on and on and on. And Jim's going to keep responding in his way, and I'm going to keep responding in my way, but y'all just go on. And that's not what I meant to say. I appreciate you saying back to me, Roberto. I remember the very first night. Even like now, Jim said, really talking about what was happening today, we really need to be talking about what was way back then. And I appreciate that. Roberto, you were so dear in January when y'all were all just so bewildered when I accepted Jim's invitation. So if there's a difference that is being avoided and that no one will talk about, well, okay, Jim, here I am. Let's talk about it. And you said it seems strange that someone couldn't find a way to avoid focusing with someone they prefer not to focus with. That there should be a way without attacking the other person or, somehow excluding the other person. And that was a part that bewildered you. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So, and Nancy, you were talking about that same night, our differences. And why couldn't we just have our differences and go forward? And y'all, that's what I've been doing for nearly 3 years. I had a difference with Jim. We are different about some things that for me make it hard for me to focus. And that's it. That's all. And so at that time, did y'all know I had already focused with Jim at least a dozen times?
Yes, we did.
Did you know, Nancy? Did you know, Roberto?
I think when
Probably. I
you,
mean, I know you had said
yeah,
it.
I just added this
For me, the big issue is rejection.
feel, feels like rejection.
It feels like rejection, and I have very strong feelings
Hmm.
about anyone in the group being rejected. And I guess I would like to find some way of no one being rejected. But and at the same time, you feeling safe. I don't know if there's another part of you who could very casually have a meeting with Jim that would feel different to you. I don't know. I just, I'm just terribly troubled at the thought of somebody in our group being rejected and pushed
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. So you feel like Jim is pushed out because I prefer not to focus with him.
It
You
feels like a
feel,
rejection.
feels like rejection. And Susan, I wonder if you feel that way too.
I don't, EJ.
You don't feel like it's a rejection.
You know, what I didn't understand why you didn't want to focus with Jim. I didn't understand in a way that I've come to. And I have some idea about why I didn't. It took me a long time until recently, but in answer to your question, no, I don't. It was, you're asking me if I think you should focus with.
Mhm. Yeah.
No,
Well, no.
I think,
What I'm asking is that we've talked about kindness, and
Mhm.
we've talked about it that it seems like I have a power differential over Jim because I have the right to say no, and he doesn't. And so
Mhm.
that feels like I'm holding some power over him. And it maybe
But you're not.
maybe you wish I could do that in a kinder, gentler, more
No,
caring way.
no, I don't think, I don't. I mean,
I don't.
you're being true to a part of yourself that is wanting that very much, is wanting protection, I think.
Uh,
Part,
uh,
a
there,
part of
there,
yourself.
there's a felt sense that says to me, just like Mr. Ginlin's daddy, I don't think I'll go with that guy. Let's look a little further. He could have been completely mistaken. We don't know that later that man was a failure in getting people out. We don't know anything about it except that he had a feeling. And I have a feeling that it is not helpful, Jim, for me to focus with you, to be alone with you, to engage in conversation with you. I, I have a feeling that I am a better person when the parts of me that are triggered by you are not triggered when I'm with you.
I
I
think
guess I should say something at this point.
That would be good. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to just say there that's the kernel here of what we're working on in this group. The feeling that all of us have about I'll be better off if I don't talk to them or this one or something like that, and that we're trying to sort of understand.
I have met in at least 30 public gatherings with Jim, and I have never said or done anything untoward in any way about Jim.
You know,
Jim is not a them to me.
No,
Jim is
no,
not
I
Jim is
didn't
not
mean,
someone that I wish evil of or mean of,
no,
not in
no,
any
I didn't
way,
mean
Jim.
to insinuate that. Just to clarify, what I was saying is that the felt sense of um of living one's life without subjecting oneself to somebody that is threatening or upsetting is what we're all dealing with. And I'm not saying that I'm not reducing your experience.
I think maybe it is. I think that there's a part of me that feels that is significantly reduced.
Oh,
That is, yeah, you go ahead and you can say it, but I'm
no,
right.
no. I
no,
don't want you
no,
to feel
no.
reduced.
I have not said this land is mine and I will push you in the sea. I have not said my people have been here thousands of years and you will not take it. I have not said, oh, but the Bible says we can take your land, so we're taking it. I have not done any of those things. I am aghast. I am aghast that once again I make myself vulnerable and I say, there is a sense in me that I will live a more healthy life if I am not seduced by Jim, if I am not taken into his way of thinking, such that I too will then be hostile and critical and sarcastic and expect the worst of people. No, that is not the same thing. Jim, I just hate this for you, and by God, I hate it for me. I wish you and I had a venue where we could talk about this that wasn't so bizarre and constrained. It's bizarre, and it is to say that I am rejecting Jim because I prefer not to be alone with him. Y'all, that is your stuff. It's all your stuff. I'm the mirror for you.
I mean, I don't see it that way, Vijay. I mean, I understand you setting limits, this is what you want. I mean, I respect it, I mean, and it's not because of him, it's because you said, if I, but hopefully, you're triggered in his presence, and then
Yeah.
you don't want to become the attack, to him, and in turn, like do damage. So you just, it's more than that. But at this point, you feel this is what it's best for you and what you want to protect inside of you. And I understand it. I mean, and uh, um, that's what I mean.
BJ, I hear the tremendous pain in your voice today and in all the communications that have gone on for a while. And I'm really so sorry for you that you've been kind of subjected to a public and participated, as well as Jim, in a public airing of this dilemma that you're faced with. And maybe it shouldn't be in the group. Maybe it should be a more private setting to get to a point where you can be more comfortable, because you don't need to carry on this pain.
More comfortable with maybe being gently led to where the only resolution is for me to be with Jim again. And let's go on, y'all. Yeah. What I would like is, Marvin, thank you. Thank you. You are absolutely right. And if it would be in any way productive, I would just cry my eyes out right now. And I've cried my eyes out for years about this. Ever since whatever happened to me happened to me. Ever since. Has Jim ever been vulnerable with you like this? Jim has been, well, this and that and this. Jim, have you ever just poured it out? No, hell no. And
BJ, I so
I know
welcome
how
you.
to be nice to people who are neurodivergent, Jim. I know how. But you never told me you were not neurodivergent. You never told me you thought you were. I spent half my adult life being loving, caring for a man who was crazy, Jim. He was crazy. He was in and out of institutions all the time. And I was there with him. I could be there with you. But the manifestation of whatever it is in you is the thing that triggers me. I don't know that I can just sit here and be quiet, y'all. I don't know that I can, but I'm going to try again. Why can't we find a way that you could say to me, BJ, I understand that you think you have treated Jim as humanely and kindly as anyone could, and that the only thing you have ever done to Jim was show a little anger because he did something that I still believe was a betrayal. I showed a little anger and I hung up. And then, oh, I didn't reply to your email, Jim. I'm acting right now like I wanted to act with him that day, and he can tell you. All I said was, Jim, I am so mad I can't see straight. I'm hanging up. I don't want to tell y'all the details of what I think he said or he did, because then, oh, he's the victim again, and I'm the one with power again. I am not the one with power here. I am not. I am.
Well, I have not, watched the last meeting, so I may be missing something, but I know that I have so much respect for you, Nancy. But I just in our group holding all of us tonight, I think that it absolutely is more than BJ and Jim. And at the same time, I really hope that we hear everyone. And I'm bringing up Nancy because you said something about rejection, and the first year that I took part in force was a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of rejection of people and a lot of things going on in the breakout room. And so this group, made room for me when I said I really can't, like, I would keep it confidential within force, but I really can't keep anything else confidential that happens in breakout rooms that leaves me carrying a bad feeling for a week, or is preventing me from participating in the breakout room or in the group, and also is people trying to get me to leave the group. So we all have different experiences here, and my main draw on just a personal level was to, I had lost one of my mentors who had introduced me to force, to focusing. So it was like a very this is like a place where I get inspired, and I'm very, very open. I've been, I'm the more process and the more I don't know how to say it, the more process and the more experienced people are with group, the better I like it. And it's not always neat, and it can be messy. And I think this group is in our heart, we're big enough, in our education, we're big enough, and in our number of people, we're small enough to have it be differentiated with what each of us needs and still coexist.
And it could be that, DJ, you were correct in that the rejection issue is an issue of my own. So, I mean, I have issues with rejection and finding it such a painful thing. So that is an issue of mine, as you suggested. So I will own that.
Well, thank you, Nancy. It's exactly with me. I I have a profoundly deep issue. Yeah, and it was kind of nice, actually, to be able to get it out, to share it with y'all. And I also have, I mean, I have a huge issue with what feels to me like creating allies. Uh, it's not that it hurts me when I hear it, because I'm not going to be hurt by that anymore. But I don't like it. Jim and you and I are different, Jim. The way that you speak to me over the issue with the woman who didn't ever come our first year, I felt, you were so troubled by that, and you spoke often during our whole first year about there are differences here and we're avoiding them. And so I just wanted to be helpful. And I brought your issues about that, about her, and about, Lynn has a great recording of me saying, I don't like it that there's someone who's a member of our group who never comes. And I just used all your words, and I stood in for you. I stood for you. And that's what I have a feeling that some of you do for Jim. That Jim shares some things with you, and then I hear Jim's voice when you speak, because he said those things to me. And Jim, I just don't agree with that. I don't think you're bad. I don't think you're wrong. I
You
am.
are very angry at me. Are you willing to say that?
Yes, I'm mad as hell right now. I sure am. I am mad as
And I
hell.
just wanted that clear because I could also have imagined you saying, no, I'm not. And it would have made perfect sense to me.
And that would have been something else that you could put on your list.
Well, you see, that's the problem.
Yeah.
I'm a person with lists. I mean, you're more than angry with me. You're angry with me for all sorts of really wonderful reasons, to the point that I feel like I should leave now. You're probably right, but I don't know if that's the that will carry forward. Otherwise, I would.
Me too. I'm planning to leave, as a matter of fact.
Let's both go.
But we
See ya.
could. We could. We
No.
could both go. But I don't mean tonight, Jim. I mean
No,
altogether.
Jim, don't.
Oh, God.
You know.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to quit. I really do.
I mean, don't. I mean, I don't. I hope you don't. I mean,
I know. I know.
nor
It's
Jim
hard.
either. I mean,
That's right.
I think that. I mean, I can see that what you were saying, that it's nothing personal with Jim. You know what I mean? And
It's really not.
um,
He has
no,
a style that is not
right,
mine.
right. This is not personal. There's something else. Um, and I understood that. And I was hoping that he would take it this way too. That even though he's being told that, at this point you can focus with him, he feels obviously rejected. I understand that, but therefore I'm not negating what you say. I understand where you're coming from, and coming, but at least, I think that ultimately is that even though this conversation is, me saying a lot, I appreciate your vulnerability, Vijay. You're really pouring out, and you're really putting yourself on the line. I mean, the end result, seems to be that that we say, no, you should be focusing with Jim and group individually, but I don't agree with that. But But what I'm saying is that we're talking about it. As difficult as it is that we having the conversation. And I appreciate you, expressing yourself. It was sticking with you, as and I feel bad that Jim left,
Me too.
and I hope he doesn't leave.
Jim has
Yeah.
left.
I don't know where the idea came from that you had to focus with Jim. I really don't know. And I think there were so many issues that you raised, BJ, that I don't really understand. And I guess from a focusing attitude and my own attitude of curiosity, I'm curious about that, all those things. But I respect you to say only what you want to say and what you're willing to say, and for me to not to probe those kinds of things. I do wonder at some times whether the regional differences, you being a Southerner and me being a Northerner, a Yankee, like Jim, doesn't tar me with some of the same brushstrokes that you offer. And I hope not, but we're all sharing what we were willing to share tonight. And so I'm putting that out.
Well, that would be, of course, always a factor. There's a way that Jim grew up, apparently, where that was not an unusual thing. Um, but for me, I've really experienced what it's like to see a group just completely fall apart because there's a person or two who just continue to remind each other and to subtly shape the views of the other. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be tempted to be that. And I did it once for Jim. I brought a case before you all and made a case about this woman, and it's on the recording that Lynn interviewed me about. And am I because he's convincing, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So I appreciate you hearing other issues, Marvin, because of course, I'm a very complex person, and thankfully, so yeah, I appreciate that, and it just so happens that I have not been triggered by one of you who then for years hounds me to still come back. And I would probably be the same with you, any of you, I hope, that I would try to be respectful and I would not leave you. I would stay with you, but not be alone with you. See, Lynn, I don't see that as I don't see that as the elemental, that it's a them.
I wasn't saying that Jim is a them to you, although it came out that way. I was saying that issue of the betrayal and conflict and is so human. It's so much what we're trying to understand and hold together. That we all represent different things for each other. And I think you're saying more tonight about what Jim was representing, that it was like this man that you were with, and how painful that was, and that you felt very hurt. And we don't know about that interaction or really need to know, but in some way you felt hurt and betrayed. And for us to be together and not leave, and I'm very much hoping that Jim can be with us you can be with us.
Mm.
And that we can make room for everybody, and making room for you, for Jim representing something for you, and you representing something for Jim. And that is a part of what happens in community.
Right,
That
right.
is what human relating is about.
Right. And can't, as Nancy says, can't we all get along? I can't imagine what else I could have done
Well, I,
for Jim. I
I
have not.
think that it's not for me. Nancy was expressing her feel. For me, it's not about us getting along. It's about us being able to talk to each other across the places where we don't get along. And get along is such an interesting term, isn't it? It's sort of like the way that Jean talked about fitting in, that to get along in the world, we have to go along. And there's something fierce about your protection of your little one that says, I'm not going to go along with this.
Since August the 5th, 2021, I have continued to nurse that little girl in me and to say, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
Does
In meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting.
does it feel, welcome back, Jim. I'm so glad you
Yeah, welcome back,
Oh,
Jim.
yeah, we're glad you came back, Jim.
Oh, glad to see you.
Yeah, I was
Please
referring
don't be
to.
glad that I came back, because I don't feel that you're really glad, all right?
Could you talk? I'd love to hear you talk.
I'd like to talk, and here's what I'd like to say. This may be my failing, but unlike you, I don't find it comfortable to be in a group with you. You find it fine as long as there are all these people around to be okay, to be with me here, and
That's
you
an
feel all
assumption.
right. But I don't feel all right. Are you
That's an
interrupting me?
assumption. I
Are you
am. That's an
interrupting me
assumption.
right now?
I
I just
am.
want
That's
it
an
on the
assumption.
record that you're interrupting me. Now go ahead.
You're making an assumption about me.
Yes, I am. You make assumptions about me. And when I said something about it, you made a big deal that I interrupted you. So I'm making the same big deal back.
Okay, good. I like that.
You can
Let him
appreciate
talk,
how great I felt
BJ,
when you
let him
did
talk.
that.
Go ahead.
Let,
Yeah, go
let's,
ahead.
let's hear Jim. Jim, why don't you say it? Please, interruptions, please. Go ahead, Jim, please.
I don't feel comfortable in this environment with this underlying whatever, no matter how glad BJ is that I came back, that is not reassuring to me. That I can't then say, oh, she's glad I'm back. The problem's gone. I don't react that way. That may be my failing, but that's who I am. And it's very hard for me to be here even now. I'd love to leave again, but I'm doing a little job here that maybe will help somebody, perhaps even me.
you're doing
No,
you're doing a little job that will help somebody, maybe even you.
Thank you for reflecting that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the job.
Well, in the past, if I left, I wouldn't come back. But I thought that's not what I'm here for. This isn't my job, you know. I've quit jobs and didn't come back. But I mean, I don't want to focus with BJ because I expect to have a rollicking good time. I just thought that this horrible tension that I feel every meeting would be gone, perhaps. That would be my hope. She is not troubled by it. She knows how to, participate in society with people she despises. But I do not tolerate this kind of an atmosphere. I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, both of you are having a really hard time. Both
Oh.
of you are fighting for your individuality, and also fighting for your belonging. And I think that the group is fighting for both of you to belong and fighting for ourselves. I feel like I'm fighting along with all of you for this hope that we can trigger each other, that we can represent things for each other, and that community can hold that and community can make it possible, that we don't take in again the poison from the past, with those representations. And I believe we can do it. I really do believe that we can do it, that we can make it possible for both of you to belong and for us to belong, the parts of me that identify with BJ and the parts of me that identify with Jim, and those very passionate, complex life and death issues. And it brings us all to this brink, to this edge of, can we do this thing that we want to do to make it possible, even when we're triggered to belong?
I would
In
like
fact,
to.
until now, I was under the impression that we could, but I lost my belief.
Mm,
And I don't know if I can get it back anymore.
mm.
You have to live through this.
I just want to say it helps me when I can say there's a part of me that is not mature enough to
Hmm.
be alone with Jim. And Jim, I know maybe the part talk doesn't help you, but when I hear you say that you believe I despise you, I like to think that there's a part of you that believes that I despise you, and that all of you doesn't believe that I despise you.
Well, I want to interfere here because it can be the normal human way is that people are holding their position and saying you're wrong, and we're trying not to do that, right?
Yeah,
So
we are.
yeah, I think we're trying very hard not to
Yeah.
do that, and not always succeeding, of course, because we don't. We're human, regular humans, but but I think that we need to assume that it's a part of everybody, right? There's a part of Jim that thinks you despise him, and there's a part of you that thinks this and this and this, and that we need to assume that in a focusing group, so
We
that
need to assume that it's only a part of
there's
us.
a part of us.
That
Yes,
it's a part of us. That helps me a lot.
yes.
That helps me too.
I just want to say, Jim, I really appreciate what you just said. That what you are hoping could happen is that the tension that's between us could somehow go away, and that you had an idea that if we were just paired again, that somehow that tension might diminish. And I really appreciate that, because that is the kind of thing I keep praying that we'll move ahead to, as a instead of holding each other silently, that there'll be some. I really hear that, and I would like for that to happen too. I would like for there to be a way that we could be together without that tension.
I'm wondering, BJ, if after you express all that, got that out, if this feels like less tension for you, that you were holding in.
I feel right now. I feel a real compassion for you, Jim.
And do
And
you feel less tension in yourself?
oh yeah, a
You
bit.
want to take a minute to
Yeah, a bit. I do.
do. You
I
feel
still. I wish I
less.
could have a conversation with each one of you, because there are things each one of you have said that I have said that I've been curious about and wanted to know more. But yeah, I'm hoping I opened some kind of a door to where others of us could talk about me and you, not about the rest of them when we're together. And Jim, I would love if we could find a way that we could not feel badly. Um, I I feel badly. It bothers me that you, or a part of you even, believes that I don't, that it doesn't bother me. I didn't mean to give that impression at all. It bothers me every time, and every time I try to remember the person I want to be, which is we have differences and we can still be together. That's the person I want to be. So I wonder, like, what do you have any ideas, Jim? You know, when you've continued to ask me, well, I focus with you. Now what I hear you saying is that what you really want is not, not so much to be with me, but that you just want a way to clear the air. Does that?
Well, you heard my history, right? I had a father who despised me, or a part of him despised me. Other parts of him loved me, but those parts were not all that important as far as I was concerned growing up. And just listening to your anger today brought me back there, and I just felt like I couldn't stay in the room.
I get that. I do.
I understand that, Jim. And I understand your difficulty staying in a place where you feel there's animosity. I do.
Maybe we could all focus for a minute on the question that you asked BJ to Jim. What could help here? But to ask it not to ask it to the felt sense of what could help here. Would it help if I met with BJ and Jim? Would it help if this sharing continues? I feel like I know Jim much better and BJ much better. Would it help for us to talk about this kind of conflict and how we deal with it?
I mean, I think for me, I kind of felt that we, unless Jim wants to say something else, but that we felt like a lot has been aired and said, and then maybe he needs to be left to rest for, in trying to find a solution. I think is too fast, too premature, So I mean, the solution meaning, resolve the conflict. But I think that a lot has been said, and I feel like not because I'm running away from conflict, but I think is that I feel like we need to sit with it a little bit.
Yes, you'd like to give it space.
Yeah.
May I ask something? I'm wondering how it would be for Jim and BJ to hear from any of us, not about them in particular, but just how all of this is for us. I find that I'm having very, very strong felt senses related to what I'm either experiencing or imagining each of you going through. And I find it very painful, and I find it difficult to be present with this level of conflict. And I'm curious, and I want to be also very, very delicate. And there's so much courage for Jim coming back, for BJ saying all of this. But I just, and I don't want to make it about what I'm experiencing, because that's not necessarily important, but I wonder if that would be supportive or that feels like not right now. So I hope that's okay to ask, and I'll wait for an answer.
What do you think, Jim?
I don't know. My history is a history of not belonging, and that's where I usually end up. So if I hear from people and I end up feeling less like I belong, it's not going to be helpful.
What would be helpful for people to, I mean, we can go to different parts of ourselves, right? Different places. What would be helpful to feel that you belong? That was so such a focusing response, right?
Well, this and my other focus and response is I don't know in advance. I can't tell you. And what I tell you might turn out to be false.
Yes, it's true.
You know, sometimes, Lynn, you say, what would it be like if it was all right, if everything was okay?
Yeah, Jean said that.
Yeah. And Jim, would you be willing to say what you what I mean? That's what you wouldn't want. You wouldn't want to be made to not belong more. But if it could be, I heard you say you would like it to for us to not have an unspoken tension, and that if we didn't have that, can you say more about that? Or if things were just okay, what would that be like for you? What would need to be in place? You know.
I don't know the answer to these questions. I don't want to make up answers.
Oh, okay.
I mean, part of the feeling is I have to trust that the tension is gone too. And when you address me like you're doing now, as if, hey, we can talk to each other because there's a group here, it doesn't feel good to me. It feels to me like I have to be very careful because I can't trust that.
Jim, why can't you trust it?
Because it doesn't feel real to me. I still, the part of me that feels despised doesn't believe that all that hatred is gone or totally put away somewhere where a moment later it's not going to be coming back out.
Could you accept the fact from each of us individually, I can't speak for anyone else, that we accept you, that I accept you and want you in the group? So
Yeah.
pain that I feel from you as you say that is painful. It's very painful to hear that that's where you are. And I'm guessing that you need to hear from others in the group that you're welcome and that you're wanted within the group.
Well, I'm wondering if I can believe it. I mean, I'm not saying this as an argument. I'm just saying that I joined force originally because the feeling of belonging was so foreign to me. I wanted to find out what it was about. And I don't know if I could get it back that easily.
Would you try? Would you be willing to, without knowing whether it would, give you what you want?
Well, let me ask the opposite question. Would you be willing to put up with it if I discover after all that it didn't do it for me, that my feeling of not belonging is so strong that none of you were able to overcome it?
I love that. I love that. When Susan, when you were saying, will you try? I was thinking about this concept of Jean's of the doing and the saying, that Charlotte will give a workshop on at the Focusing FOT conference that I hope you'll all come to. And in that he says, you know, what, it's not what we're saying, it's what we're doing in our saying. So we're wanting, you know, saying, will you try, is saying, well, you'll belong if you do this and this. So that what we're saying and what we're doing are really at odds. But it seems like if we accept that you don't trust, of course, now, that's the belonging. You don't have to trust it. You don't have to be anyway. You could not trust it. Of course, you're not going to trust it when your father was, you know, loving in certain ways and then despising you and hating you in other ways.
Are you saying you could belong even if you don't feel
Trust.
like you belong?
Yeah.
How about that, Jim?
I'm trying my best to parse your sentences. I'm not doing too well.
Yeah.
Jim, I'm wondering, and Nancy, what you said, the question that you asked in the email today was so powerful. Do you remember the way you worded it about safety? And if it was like Jesus and the 99 and the one. It was, you asked something about if everybody, could you pull that up? It was just a beautiful question. And I think it gets at what these three folks are talking about. Let's see, you said,
I think I was responding to what, to Annette's question of what is safety, or I can't remember exactly how she worded it.
it was the one you
Um,
did today. It was the one you sent this morning,
I
right?
know, I have it in
Right?
front of me.
Oh, good, good. You said something like, can everybody be okay and safe if one person feels they're not safe? Or
I don't think, let me see if I can, I just copied it out because I didn't think I'd remember what I said.
go girl, I like that.
I had started with, I was going to apologize for my Pollyannish comments about the safety that can exist in our group,
Yeah, read on.
but I don't think I'm going to. I mean, I think that, you know, a lot of people are saying that, no, we're not all safe in the group. And I hear that that's how people are experiencing it. And what I have said, then I said, it takes courage to speak up with what we think and believe, and it takes courage to accept one another with our differences. I guess the difference from what I've said before is the words can exist rather than assuming it does exist.
Keep
So
going. You're almost there.
I suppose that was wishful thinking. If the majority of the group can accept one another as they are, including the person who is not able to, does that make it safe? Or does it come back to needing a sense of safety within?
Thank you. That
For
first,
me, let
go
me
ahead.
finish.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
For me, a sense of safety within grows stronger each time I risk speaking up, even when people don't agree with me. So now, if I was rejected by the group as a result, it would be painful, and I'd have to learn a heck of a lot from it. But my sense of safety does come. It's kind of like being a toddler when the baby moves away from the mother a little bit further and a little bit further, and then is able to go into another room by itself. And it almost feels like when I have begun to develop safety within a group setting and speaking up, I did it in just very little ways with very little to say. And then if I was accepted, I would do a little bit more. And if I was accepted, I would do a little bit more. And through that, and it was Al-Anon, I think that was one of the biggest ways that began, but as well as therapy. But I think that as that grew tiny little baby steps at a time, I developed it within. So I can take a bigger risk more easily now, even though, yeah, you might reject me. You might dislike me intensely. But I need to say what I believe in and who I am. And it's just so, it's so important to me, sorry, that people be accepted and liked as they are and just accepted as they are. Because I haven't been in the past, I guess, way in the past, but I have been developing this little bits at a time. And I so want that for others, every single one of you. And right now I feel it especially strongly for you, Jim, and for you, BJ, because there's just so much pain that you are expressing. And I don't know how to enable that development of just knowing you're okay, just the way you are, even though you're not perfect. There isn't a single damned one of us that's perfect.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I loved hearing the description of, you know, you've told us a little bit about your past and that you didn't give up and you just found a way to say a little and say a little and say a little. And that sounds kind of like a prescription for us, maybe somehow. And Jim, I really, I was thinking of you, you know, and I love what Lynn, what you said about no wonder you don't trust. No wonder you don't. And you came back tonight. And to me, that's like that step, right? And I love it that you said, if I still don't do it, Jim, you said, if I'm still not able to feel like I belong, or is that going to be not okay? They said to you, Susan. And that sounds like, Nancy, that's what you want. You just want Jim to feel like it's okay. He's okay here. He could be here. And you're learning how to do that.
That he personally, and you personally, and every one of us personally are okay just the way we are, with all of our defects and our strengths. That's what's so strong to me. And
My defect at the moment is I'm fighting leaving continually. And maybe it's not a defect because so far I haven't left again.
Well, keep fighting.
Yeah. I mean, I can see
I
the
want to
struggle,
encourage
Jim.
you to belong in the group, stay in the group, and also to want to stay in the group. It was a struggle for me, personal struggle for me last year and earlier this year, to want to belong and to stick it out, so to speak, because I was feeling, as I've shared many times, not belonging. Two things, another thing that strikes me, reflecting our different parts, and just as a point of saying that I understand a little bit of your distrust, because in the group today, it's not a question of distrusting, but I'm aware that BJ shows different parts of herself today. She showed a very angry part earlier, and now she's showing a more compassionate part, and a more thoughtful, rational, calm part that is encouraging all of us to be here and to express ourselves honestly. So we all have that. So I encourage you, stick it out, Jim. I want you to be here.
Encouragement really doesn't help, actually.
Oh, ow.
What helps?
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
I think that,
I
you
know
know,
it doesn't help when you do it and it doesn't help.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Jim is in that place that he feels that he was despised and hatred, and then trying to tell him, no, you belong here. We need you. Is pushing him away. I think we gotta respect. It's difficult to I think you felt a lot of animosity. Then it's difficult to move to a place where you're accepting our encouragement, you know, our desire for you to be. So I
That helped.
respect,
That
you know,
helps.
just we gotta respect where he's at. Just, you know, leave him alone. Or I know we're
Yes,
trying to reach him with words to come out of this place. Just respect him where he's at. I mean, it's been a lot for him, a lot for BJ.
and you articulated that so well, Roberto, and that did help.
And you too, Marvin.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Nancy, I just wanted to underline what you said about the little steps of taking risks that lead to trust. You know, that to say something when you feel like the other people aren't going to accept it is a step. And I think you do that, Jim. You know, that is always your way, is to try to take a little risk, a little step, and you too, Nancy.
You know,
You know, it's
I think there's a step that was taken tonight, and it's staying.
Hmm.
It's just staying. And
Hmm.
I was thinking it's kind of miraculous that the shift
Hmm.
that has occurred tonight. Just it's so different
It
now
is.
than 3/4 of an hour ago.
Maybe we're making a new term, you know, for your paper, Susan. The
What?
staying.
The staying, yeah.
I was thinking that about how belonging isn't something you're given, and belonging is something you have to claim.
Yep.
Hmm.
Tim, I was wanting to share a part of myself with you and see if, if you had a similar part, but I have to struggle when I feel bad against leaving, that I want to leave. I want to make the other people feel they failed me, and I hope that they'll feel bad. And I mean, I remember I would feel that as a child. But when I have done that, when I've actually carried that through, oh, I felt so lonely. So I try my best to resist that. Did you feel any of that?
I felt a little of that, not a lot of it. For one, when I left, I was not heavily invested in what was going on. I was more invested in, I got away.
Yeah.
And what's the second part you said? I can't remember now. I'm not.
Okay.
What's that?
Well, I guess the second part was I would want the other people to suffer.
No, I didn't want anybody to suffer. I just wanted, I just wanted to stop suffering. Oh yeah, the second part was about how you felt very alone. I'm very familiar with being alone. I spent many years feeling alone. And so it's not that tragic to me. It's not more tragic to suffer in the presence of everybody else. If I can get to be alone, that's a relief.
I felt like I dug my own grave, kind of, stuck with it.
Well, I think I'm in the grave all the time, so it's not a big deal.
Lynn, I want to ask you about, if you would say more about the idea that you have to claim your belonging rather than it be given. Doesn't it really depend on how you experienced your childhood? Some kids are feel loved by their parents. They don't have to claim it. In other situations, as Jim described for us, where you don't feel that love, maybe I really have to fight for it. And it's easier to leave.
Yeah, I'm sure yes, Marvin, that's right. And even if you felt a sense of belonging in your family, there are ways that you want to belong in a larger world that aren't you won't belong. I want to belong with lots of people that don't accept me. And I have to claim my belonging with them. They're not going to, just because I had parents that wanted me. And also the belonging in my family was at the price of, my parents needed me to come and help them. The belonging came at a big price. So can I belong with somebody when I'm not helping them? That would be more, something I would have to claim. But I sort of love that idea that you have to claim belonging, that it isn't just given to you.
Mm.
That was really thought-provoking for me, because I struggle with belonging too, but because then if you keep moving around trying to find a place where you feel that there's belonging, you may not find that place. Then what do you do, right? And so I think actual belonging, and then maybe I think that not feel safe in a group is part of the dynamic, and that one person might say something the next group that makes somebody feel unsafe. As long as we can express ourselves, talk about, try to understand where we're coming from, and then in being about the interaction, I think that's when we can reach to more, I guess, safety, I guess. I mean, I don't want to talk too much, but I heard you, Mary, saying that, and I was puzzled and concerned about, you said you were like people talking about belonging, and that you felt, I don't know whether it's in group or not, that people didn't want you here, or they're pushing you out or something like that. I don't know if I heard you correctly.
Yeah. I was, the first year of this group was more peaceful on the surface, but it was very tumultuous behind the scenes. And I think that I think what helped me was I was so focused on the learning the focusing, and the one-on-one focusing was great. That was great. And but it's like it's just like going through a whole range of experiences that we have, and in our workplaces or in our families, where you just don't know how it's going to fall out, or who's going to influence whom, and who's going to stay or leave. And like that particular year, because it was my first year, I think I was more invested in, the people I felt closer to, staying in people that had, hurt me or been more aggressive. I I basically, I don't understand entirely why, but I was just neutral about it with everyone. And I wasn't in the group long enough to feel like I could bring it up and talk about it. I mean, now I know um, most people hear better. And I'm grateful if somebody triggers a feeling in me that, I know it comes from my earlier life. And that tends to happen for me once I know people better. And so I think this is my third year. There was a point I wanted to make about, just to let Jim know that, from the time I was born till I was about 4, I was basically like, in my family used for people's pleasure. And I was selectively mute from then until I was 16. So I didn't belong very well at all. And I'm just, little silly things like, my high school class, reached out to me last week to see if I was going to be available, for a get together. And I don't happen to be available, but I'm amazed that people, you know, this is like 50 years later, people we found a way to get to know each other. And it never occurred to me that we claim our belonging. I think I'm always like moving around and hanging in there and to see if it can happen. So I love it, Lynn, that you will put a stake in the ground and like, I can belong.
I love that image of you putting a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
I wonder if we might hear a word from Masumi before we stop, because I haven't heard your voice, Masumi, and I'm missing it.
Well, thank you for asking, but I'm not ready to speak up now.
Okay, I understand. And I think you weren't here when we were appreciating what you said last time at the end. So often you'll say something at the end that brings us all together. Not that there's any pressure to do that.
No pressure.
I hate to be the last one speaking, but I really want to say something. I'm touched deeply today by many of you, by BJ, by Jim, by Nancy, and by Susan, by everyone. I think I can really feel the pain BJ feels. It feels like being trapped in a place you are being required to do something you don't want to. It's painful. I can feel that. I feel sorry for you, BJ. And for Jim, I can really relate to the part not belonging and being confused by appearance. Maybe some parts of my mother love me. Parts of her really doesn't, probably hates me. And that's why I'm touched by what Susan said. You have to live through it and keep fighting. I think we have to live through it, keep fighting. We will grow out of it. I think it's okay to be in a group, being loved by parts of people and being despised by some other parts. That's okay. Let me think. And it's also amazing to watch how Lynn holding all of this. It's always amazing. I learned a lot from that.
I think we're all holding so much and yeah, working together to hold it.
And you still have confidence in everything. It's amazing. Thank you, Lynn. You give me courage. And also, I want to thank Susan to pointing that out, to stay being here.
To stay, yes.
And Jim, please stay.
And the same with you, Kate. Lynn, do you think you might put a little pressure on Yoka?
Maybe you could, BJ. Yoka, would you say a word for us, a word to us before we leave?
Well, that did feel like pressure.
Was.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just want to thank everyone. I've been quiet. As for me, it's, yeah, you know, we were always very quiet when I was young. And so it's for me, yeah, I guess my difficulty is to be really, I think, well, one, to be fully present with these types of conflicts and these things that are being said and the hurt, and so and then also to say something about it and to reflect that. And so yeah, but I've been listening very deeply and yeah, I'm just very thankful to be in the group and that you tolerate me being quiet. Okay.
And it was hard for you tonight to stay too. Do I hear you saying that it was hard for you to stay in the face of this kind of conflict?
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah. I mean, when Jim just laughed, I was like, yeah, in a way, I'm like maybe with one foot out of the door, and the rest of me in. So, but partly out and partly in. Yeah, I find it really hard, and then to also to yeah, it's just really then at some point to know or to, yeah, I've seen the group trying to figure out and find openings and to see where we could go from here. So yeah, grateful for that experience. So that's it. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Yoka. Thank you. And Lynn, did you know that Rachel is going out of the country tomorrow morning?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Rachel, we hope you have a wonderful, wonderful time.
Yeah, have a great time,
Thank you
Rachel.
very much. Thank
Going,
you.
Rachel, where are you going?
Granada, which my reference to it is, I think when Reagan, or somebody sent troops over there. So I always had heard it as like very politically destabilized, but I don't care. I need a vacation. Plus that was in the 80s, which to me feels like yesterday, but indeed it's 100 years ago. So, but I just need that Caribbean water. I need that for like it to seep into all my pores, that blue. So I'll take some pictures if you guys want and send.
Oh,
Sure.
yes,
Yeah.
But
Sounds great,
definitely.
Rachel.
yeah, but thank you for saying that. Thanks for bringing that up. And
Yeah. And so
thank
you're
you.
not going to Granada, Spain. You're going to the little tiny little island off the coast of South
Yes.
America, right?
Yes, yes. And
Is
on
it-
the way there, I'll try to learn why we sent troops there, what exactly went on, and
Good idea. And listen, there's a medical school there, a British medical school, and some of the best looking men you have ever seen. So
that.
maybe you can find some of them.
Thank you. That is actually solve that I really needed. I think I might sleep well tonight. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
Forget
really,
about the conflict.
but can I just say, it's really important to me that Jim is in the group and that we're all in the group together. And I don't, at the risk of that alienating Jim or making Jim feel okay. And is Jim still here?
Yeah.
It's really like a fundamental thing, like a column that holds up the architecture for me. Whether he's not talking and speaking through his not talking or talking, I just need him to be here and part of this. And this was very tough to be with tonight. And sorry if you guys saw me moving around. I'm trying to organize, but it was very important to be together. And I feel like it was kind of courageous for all of us. I wanted to go and I wasn't even in the conflict, and I do conflict for a living myself. I felt like I might drop off. It was hard to hear. And I feel huge empathy with both of what you're up against with what people articulated beautifully. So I'm so glad everybody's here who's supposed to be here and nobody dropped off.
Well, Susan has given us a new term and we've been practicing this step of staying. So
Mhm.
we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right, thank you.